English language documentaries shed light on the complexity. Released last week, they provide the background story and big picture context that's been lacking from international media reports on the topic. And these documentaries were aired on CGTN, the exact channel that you're watching. The first, Fighting Terrorism in Xinjiang, features never-before-seen images and testimonies from people impacted by terrorism, including rare video footage of the Urumqi riots in July 2009, which killed 197 people, the Kunming train station assault in March 2014, which killed 31 people, and the May 2014 Urumqi attack, which killed 43 people. Incomplete statistics show that from 1990 to 2016, thousands of violent terrorist attacks were launched in Xinjiang, killing large numbers of innocent people and hundreds of police officers. The second, called The Black Hand, the East Turkestan Islamic Movement and Terrorism in Xinjiang, exposes how the group brainwashes people, including children, with extremist thoughts, inciting hatred between different ethnic groups and launching terrorist attacks. Now, both documentaries provide perspectives from people who actually live in Xinjiang and who have been impacted by terrorism and tormented by the threat of extremism and separatism. But strangely enough, the very same media that's been so vocal about Xinjiang-related news seem to have gone silent when it comes to reporting on these documentaries and the ugly realities these documentaries reveal. In a regular press conference on December the 9th, China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying added some insights. Let's listen to what she said to the journalists in attendance that day.
Can you tell me frankly why you didn't report on this? Didn't you tell us that you have always held an objective, fair, and comprehensive position? You are very concerned about Xinjiang issues. When there are liars with ulterior motives telling lies about Xinjiang, you rush to them. When the facts and truth of Xinjiang are presented to us, you avoid it. Why? What are you worried about? And what are you afraid of? Shouldn't you calm down and engage in serious reflection?
Now, she went on to say she hopes that more members of the media will actually watch the documentaries, think about them, and report them objectively, as they have some responsibilities as reporters and journalists to do so. She added she looks forward to their truly comprehensive, impartial, and unbiased reports, as do I. But so far, those that did report on the documentaries dismissed them as Chinese government propaganda, or missed the point that the policies stem from a real threat, not just a crackdown on so-called human rights. Let's look at our examples today. Our first article comes from The Guardian, which on December the 9th published, China claims detained Uyghurs have been freed. Now, the article reports on Monday's press conference where Xinjiang's governor, Shokrat Zakir, spoke to reporters about the vocational training centers, emphasizing that the program focused on teaching Chinese language skills, law, and vocational skills to eliminate extremism. The report suggests that China's version of the story is suspect, however, when it says that certain leaked documents undermine the governor's claims. It then adds, in recent days, Beijing has launched an aggressive propaganda campaign in response to criticism of its policies in Xinjiang. And last Friday, the state broadcaster CCTV released a documentary called Fighting Terrorism in Xinjiang, which included footage of terrorist attacks. Over the last year, China has put on several curated state-organized trips to the region. Now, I think the world wants to know what's going on in Xinjiang, but when Beijing goes out of its way to explain what's happening and why, it's automatically labeled propaganda. The article mentions the documentaries but fails to dedicate even a few lines to what they are about or the new information they share. There is not one mention of the previous terror attacks in the region or why the program was launched in the first place. Why not? Is it just too inconvenient for the Guardian's narrative to show the other side of the story? I have a special obligation to address our next article since my face is actually featured in it. The New York Times on December the 9th published an article which reads, "Facing criticism over Muslim camps, China says, what's the problem?" It says Chinese officials have released social media videos, blistering editorials, and attacks on researchers in a push to counter evidence of its Muslim internment drive. And the article adds Beijing is using slick videos and strident editorials in its aggressive media campaign to defend its side of the story. Well, wouldn't it be more accurate to include the facts without the fancy adjectives so that readers can make up their own minds if the videos are slick, if the editorials are strident, my editorials probably, if the media's approach is indeed aggressive? My face appeared around the middle of the article as one such example, presumably. I appreciate that they included my commentary as another voice speaking out on the issue, but the article misses the bigger picture of Xinjiang, the background information on the region, the tremendous efforts made to not just eradicate terrorism, but lift the region, lift its people out of poverty, the overall progress that's been made in the region in terms of tourism, education, and infrastructure. It's important to look at an issue from a holistic perspective instead of a series of tweets and posts. The article also mentions our channel when it says China's state-run international broadcaster CGTN posted several English-language videos on YouTube featuring footage of what is said were earlier attacks by Uyghurs swept up in extremism and separatist movements. But then the article features an expert on the region to question the videos. The expert says the videos could help deflect criticism of the detentions, but by playing on exaggerated fears that Uyghurs are susceptible to becoming terrorists. Are the fears exaggerated when there is a track record of terrorist attacks? Who gets to decide which fears are real and which are exaggerated? And who can be trusted to do a fair and balanced reporting job? From the previous headlines we've dissected so far, I really can't be so sure. To me, it seems that some media don't bother at all to highlight the Chinese views or perspective because they think it comes straight from the Chinese government. In their minds, it cannot be trusted. But is this wise? You can be doubtful of China's official position, but if you dismiss everything that's said by the Chinese government simply because it's been said by the Chinese government, I think that will be generalizing too much. In the Chinese or Confucian culture, the government is not the necessary evil, but the necessary good, which has a responsibility to provide protection and to steer socio-economic development. To dismiss something simply because it comes from the Chinese government will prevent people from knowing the whole picture. I acknowledge that it's difficult for journalists and experts to write about a place where they probably have never lived or about a complex issue with deep roots. It's the same challenge for me, but for the more than 24 million people who actually do live in Xinjiang, safety and stability matter. For them, it's reassuring that no terrorist attacks have occurred in Xinjiang over the past 3 years. That's a big deal, and this is a big victory for Xinjiang in the international war or fight against terror and extremism.